Excuse me. Hey everybody, it's Jillian. So this is more of my verbalizing everything that I'm going to write about, so that way I can hear it, taste it, smell it, talk about it, and it hits all my five senses, because that's how I do things and that's how things get into my head. And I have a direct relationship with the information. And so again, that's why I say, you guys, if you could record what you're saying and learn how to speak to your videos, even if it's just by yourself so you can hear what you sound like, that would help you in anything you want to convey and communicate in a very articulate manner. And you can start correcting yourself if it's not to your expectation. And so anyways, I'm on the physics section and I'm trying to figure out, okay, so how am I going to attack physics? Not attack it like in a way of bad. I'm talking about how am I going to angle the physics portion of this book? Well, it's obviously the formula that we've figured out. It's the Trinity, the Trinity of. The Trinity of really is the outcome and then the two dueling sides. Because remember, the outcome is always the intention. It's either life or death, or a specific outcome based upon the context. So if you want to dissolve something and turn it into, I don't know, you want to dissolve water or dissolve salt, you need water and oxygen or something like that, right? There's always two specific action and reactions that will have a specific outcome. And so that's why I say the outcome is always the intention. And when you apply your body with antibiotics, well, it's because, when you die, it's because you apply your body with antibiotics and it is counteracting the life in your body, which then, of course, ends up in death. So then I started doing the Trinity of, and what is it? The Trinity of, the Trinity of equations. So physics, what is physics? Because physics is about equations and getting to a certain point of equilibrium, and then being able to adapt to your environment, which is then responding to action and reaction. But really everything is about action or reactions, because the initial action happened way back a long time ago when the earth was first born. So really everything is about reaction, because you're always reacting to something, always. I don't care what it is, everyone's reacting to something. So the initial action really came from like billions of years ago. So physics is a science that deals with structure of matter and the interactions between the fundamental constituents of the observable universe. So yes, the things that you can't see, well, you know that it is doing something when you have a reaction, just like wind. When wind blows, you see the trees move. You can't see wind and you can't see certain transducers because they're so microscopic, or the energy of transducers because they're so microscopic, because they could be like, radio waves, it could be sound waves, it could be different kind of waves that you can't see, but you see how it interacts with things. And so the Trinity of equations is always trying to get to an equal, trying to get to a unilateral equal equation where it is equal on both sides. And if it's not, there's a reason why, because there's always going to be dynamics involved. And when there's dynamics involved, there's always going to be that little interplay of something's be more than the other thing, but then it'll always equal out. It comes out in the wash. Okay, that means that even though you put all these different actions and one is not equal to the other, in the end, the outcome, everything comes out in the wash and you see what the outcome is. Okay, so the Trinity of equations is the equal sign at the top of the capstone, and then the plus on the left and the minus on the right, and then you also have the dividing sign in the middle, because it is a division somewhere. And then there is the plus sign actually can be like a little asterisk, because that's multiplication, that's addition as well. But it's a different way of adding. And so division is also subtraction, but it's said in a different form. So equal is really the multiplication, addition with the division sign, and then the negative sign or the subtraction sign. Okay, so when I actually put that together, I was like, oh, that's right. Because I have plus and minus, which is the positive, negative on an integer scale, right? But then it's the relationships between multiplication and division. That's why PEMDAS, the order of operations, parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, and then addition and subtraction. So you always do the most, there's a way to explain that. It tells you how to do things first. A parenthesis tells you how to do things first. And then it's the multiplication and division, because that's the most microscopic and the most abundant. Then you add, well, anyways, I'll figure out how to, it probably isn't really what I was thinking, but that's okay. But you understand the whole order of operations. But then there's the trinity of physics: insulation, transistor, and resistor. Insulation is equal sign. Okay, that is saying, okay, transistor and resistor, they're both plus and minus. They resist, either they transmit something or they resist the transmission. So it's plus or minus. Okay, so that's the trinity of physics. The trinity of human PCBs is printed circuit boards, right? Intelligence, and then insulation, insulin, and then energy. All right, and the trinity of a cured state in a dynamic environment, it is resist, overheat, and die. And that's what goes on right now with all of the different viruses and everything, is that people are resisting the evolution of the virus, and then they overheat because of all the different programming that is conflicting with each other. And then what happens is the end result is people die or pass away because they're not actually working with the environment. They're trying to work against it, but at the microscopic level. And that's what all the cures are. Okay? Because a cure is like, well, I'll tell you what a cure is. Trinity of salt usage. Okay? Water and volcano. Oh, sorry, weather and volcano. I have these things on my board here. The weather and volcanoes had created salt. They create sodium chloride. And so what is the point of salt? All right, the salt usage, well, it's to energize, and then it's to dissolve or cure. So this is where I tell my jelly juice crowd, when you're doing too much of the jelly juice and not enough of the food supply, okay, it's then you're in a cured state. Now, when you have that much electricity, that much action potential on a body that doesn't have enough substance to it, this is where you're in a cured state and you're not actually evolving, and you're not feeling symptoms, so you're not feeling any pain, because you're energizing the pain away, you're energizing the muscle mass and the fat away. And so that's why you have to understand, in a very dynamic environment such as this, with the COVID, with people milling around, mutating the COVID, with all the 5G and whatever else, jelly juice is now going to work against you if you are doing so much of it, especially if you're underweight. That's why I keep saying, all over my Facebook, if you're skinny, you need to pack on the pounds and do a little bit of J juice, because the J juice is no different than the energy that's out there that you are being cannibalized by. Okay, so you have to eat. You cannot play the discrimination game. Okay, so salt can cure something. How does that mean cure? Well, look at cured meats. You take a meat, you actually put it in salt, it dries it up, and then it stays in that state, but it's not like it's going to stay that way forever. I mean, it might, it just depends on the environment. If it's in a cool, dry place and it's all salted and cured, then it probably will stay there for a while because it's like a preservative. But if you put that cured piece of meat out there in the elements, where it's subject to the elements of water and everything else, then yes, it will start interacting with the environment, and then water will add, then it'll dilute the salt, the meat will become softer, and then probably subject to microbes and whatever else. Okay, so if salt is in a cool, dry place with no access to water, then it will cure that piece of meat. It will cure whatever that's in that state of its environment, as long as there's no water. That's why people don't understand that salt is not going to poison you. It's not going to dehydrate you if you drink water. But those that are not very well versed in chemistry will think that salt is poison, because that's what the medical holistic industry has said. Oh, salt is dehydrating, only to those that have no access to water. Okay, and also to those that are not bringing in enough covalent bonding, because salt is an ionic bonding. So the covalent bonding is all of the bioengineered sugars, and that's processed sugar too. Those of you who are discriminatory, processed sugar, refined sugar, organic sugar, which is bullshit. All types of sugar, carbohydrates, fats, amino acids, proteins, all of that gives you substance. Those are part of the acids in your DNA. The sugars are the phosphates that are actually make up the ladders of your DNA. And then the hydrogen bonds then keeps the acids together. And that is the ACTG, the adenine, the thymine, the guanine, and the cytosine. And then the uracil is that link to help you adapt to the fluctuating conditions. So that's the whole thing with uracil. Uracil is a derivative from cytosine. And that is what gives us the allows us to have a little bit of mutations in our RNA. So that way, if we wanted to evolve to a more aggressive environment, we have that ability. We're not resisting the environment. So the uracil is making sure that we don't resist the environment. Okay? Because if you resist the environment, then guess what happens? You will start declining. And that's what's going on right now. So people are resisting the environment. They're taking all their cures. They're getting lesser programs from the viral therapeutics, okay? And then they're not wanting to feel pain. And so, so how you react to the changes in your environment is going to be relative to whether or not you live a long time or a short time. And most likely those that are already at a major deficit who don't want to feel pain, they're going to have a very short time on this earth. Okay? And so then with someone that's very obese, like I was saying, if they start doing J-juice and incorporate that into their daily routine, like just like a shot with every meal, like a shot. Doesn't have to be like a whole gallon. That was back when the atmosphere was not very dynamic, okay? And people were so like dealing with so many different issues, and especially if you're obese and you had a lot of issues and you ate a bunch of food, you could really heal very much faster. But nowadays, it's like you already have the environment and you have the changes in the programming. And so you must feel pain, and that's why someone that's obese should incorporate it to get things moving, to get your colon moving, to get your cells moving, because then, yes, the trinity of biological solvents is like osmosis, and it's the salt water that goes through a semipermeable cell and starts activating the cell, along with the ATP, the sugar, and the phosphates, and all of that. And so you have the ionic and covalent bonding. That's physics, is how you balance out and equalize the ionic and covalent bonding. Because if you do too much ionic activity, as well as doing the jelly juice, and you're in a labor-intensive, job, and you have a very dynamic environment, the ionic is going to keep you in a cured state, and then also cannibalize you if you don't pack on the pounds. That's why I say skinny people, you need to pack on the pounds, because guess what insulin resistance is? It's when you don't have insulation. You're resisting insulation because maybe you're obese. And then if you're obese, well, that's insulin, too much insulin, but then eventually it shuts off. And then people have insulin. No, well, when you can be insulin resistant and lose weight. Too much insulin, too much sugars. Yes, you're obese, you'll get diabetes. But those that are very, very skinny have trouble eating sugar because then they're diabetic and they're skinny. I'm like, I don't know how the hell that is. When you're insulin resistant, or you have to take insulin pills or something when you eat sugar because too much, it's like, and then you're so skinny, then, yeah. Some people are very, very cattywampus in their insulin and their hormones, which is what regulates the body mass index. So anyway, so insulin and insulation, that's the covalent bonding. Okay, and so that is the balance of ionic and covalent bonding. So life and energy, or life or purpose, that's right, trinity of purpose is the ionic and covalent bonding, the trinity of objects. Because you can have a bunch of covalent bonding and the object doesn't move. Like this pen is a covalent bond and it doesn't move unless I move it. But you can have covalent bonding in the body. But it's, I don't know. My skin, everything is moving on me because I'm in a dynamic environment. Are things moving in this pen? Well, I'm sure at the micro level something is. But it's still relative to, I guess, observable universe, right? So anyway, so physics is about how the body and how the world interacts with each other. The structure of matter and the interaction between fundamental constituents of the observable universe. And gravity, yes. I'll be putting like image, the constituents of an image, a projected image is electrical impulses, matters, acids, and gases, and that has to do with the body as well as the universe and your biodiversity. What else? The protons, neutrons, electrons, all of that, which is at the micro part of the universe out there in space. And so, I mean, physics has everything to do with the macro and the micro, and then how your body interacts with the dynamic environment. And so, yeah, back before the gods came down and entered into the universe with all the, with all the different viruses, and then panspermia is, when you have meteorites and other types of things bringing in viruses, maybe at some point there was relative peace and there wasn't that much dynamic energy, and so the animals were in relative like equilibrium. But then when there's a new entity entering into environment, then you don't have equilibrium. And there really isn't equilibrium because seasons are always changing. Animals bring up kinetic energy, when they're walking through a forest or whatever. So there's always energy being given off. It's a matter of how much energy and can you handle that action potential. And so I'm telling you guys, I'm going to break everything down, okay? Obesity and underweight, you have to be able to balance out the ionic and covalent bonding. And so Julie Juice is about evolution. It's about working with your environment and working with the food supply, all of the food supply. And biofortification, I'm telling you, if you only eat out of your garden, you don't eat anything else, and you're all organic, you're going to miss the nutrients and the substantial covalent bonding that you're going to need to be able to adapt to this environment, to this universe, to your community, your culture. And so that's the objectivity. The objective of my book is to give people the basics of stuff that's all linked together, that you don't have to pay a college or university to compartmentalize it, and you only learn one little specific thing based upon corporations and their intentions. That really linking, English and math and social studies and all the different sciences and physics and chemistry and biochemistry. You see the connections between all different contexts, and then that way you can make the best decision for yourself, for your kids. And only a very small percentage of the population is going to understand Julie Juice and understand my information, because so many people are so entrenched in their belief systems, whether it's politics, religion, and science. Okay, they're not going to do the Julie Juice, and you know it, and that's okay. You don't want everybody doing Julie Juice, because that would defeat the point of balancing the earth and its resources, and then all the consumers in our society who just consume with no give back. And so count your blessings that I have a very small group of people that understand this, because that way you can let biotech, direct the purpose of how you want your infrastructure to be, especially if we're looking for spaceships or if we're looking for different ways to do things that are faster, easier, and definitely more interesting. And so biotech is always going to have organisms that are going to be born from people who have an intention to direct that organism's purpose. And then you, as a person who understands Julie Juice, will observe on the inside and the outside and not be part of the war. Because at some point, which they are probably going to perfect, is, people will glitch, but you don't have to be part of that dramatic glitching. But at some point, they're going to perfect the backdoor triggers to where you won't trigger the cancer, disease, and chronic illness. And you won't have it strung out for a long period of time, because the backdoor triggers are going to lessen the suffering. And then when you are dynamic and you're able and you're viable and you're amazing, and then you start breaking down, the breakdown process is not going to be drawn out. It's going to be like that. And that's why you have to understand what biotech is doing. It's not a bad thing. We're tired of having people glitch and commit crimes and be a drain on society, right? People are tired of it. They're tired of people taking advantage and not contributing. And so there has to be a way to perfect the degradation process, the decay process, to where people aren't glitching and taking up more resources than they're giving back. And so that's what you have to see. That's the future. That's artificial intelligence. So you can either understand that and figure out a way to stay alive, productive, and viable, or you contribute to the decay process, and then biotech's going to find a way to make the decay process very, very quick and almost like a supernova without you taking down everybody else around you. And so I get it. I understand it all. And very small percentage of people are going to get it. Maybe a few in academia will get it because they understand physics, they understand thermodynamics. But most of the lay people out there that are stuck in their addictions of things of their hormones and stuck in the distractions, they're not going to see my information. I want them to see it. I freaking bank on it. They'll see it at some point when they start experiencing things, but I don't hold out any hope and I don't hold my breath. So who I'm appealing to are those that really understand the physics and understand the connections between all things and are willing to see it through and deal with what it takes to see it through. And yeah, it's painful, but I can deal with the pain. You saw how much I dealt with as far as all the people that were nasty to me, who are still nasty to me if I give them the chance. I deal with my own, having to evolve to new environments. I can handle it. Okay, I set up my life the way I need to set it up so I can survive it. I make sure my dog is okay. And, and so if I can deal with it, okay, and I don't like pain, but I do deal with it, but I don't like pain. I'm a bitch when I'm in pain. Okay, so I don't want pain to last forever. I want to find the best way to shorten the time between the beginning of pain and the end of pain. But it doesn't mean that I'm going to use shortcuts and destroy myself in the process. No, I'm going to find a way to be so strategic and get through it and know that I can strengthen my body to deal with the adaptive qualities of new viruses that are going to be in our environment now and in the future. So, all right, have a good day. Bye.